وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. As we start our lessons and resume the classes in regards to Usul al-Thalatha, the three principles which is incumbent upon every Muslim to learn. We said that these are from the books which will strengthen the people's foundation in their Islam, which will allow them to be upright in this world and keep them firm upon this correct path and the straight path that will lead to Allah and inevitably, inshaAllah, bi'idhnillah, paradise. For verily these principles, like we said, are of the utmost importance, in which majority of the Muslims neglect. Rather, they don't give some of them neglect in its importance, and to the point where even some of them make mockery of why we put so much emphasis on learning these principles. For verily, the majority of what we see in the circumstances of the Muslims all around the world is due to the fact of their lack of knowledge in these principles and applying them. And for what we see of our brothers and sisters, some of them going astray. And we're not saying that living in this type of life, especially in this country, in this land, is very difficult, no doubt. Especially for the one who definitely wants to practice the religion in the most purest manner, will find it very difficult of this type of lifestyle, especially here in the West. For no doubt it is very, very difficult. However, if one was to learn these principles and he apply them and what we're learning now and make dua to Allah to keep him or her firm, for verily the one who Allah keeps firm upon the sirat or upon the path in this world, then he will keep him firm upon the path over hell in the hereafter. In the sirat in this world, or the path or the bridge or the path in this world, is upon the correct methodology and the correct belief and the correct way of practicing it. And likewise, Allah given the tawfiq to the abd or the amma, to the slave or the female slave of his, allowing them and inspiring them to perform righteous actions and being upright people. We stopped in the principle in Usul al-Thalatha in regards to al-wala wal-bara. As we continue discussing this matter of al-wala wal-bara, excuse me everyone, al-wala wal-bara, al-wala, as we said and we talked about last lesson before Ramadan, that we said that the meaning of al-wala is to make or to manifest who you love, or who you want to bring close, and who to give allegiance, or to profess your allegiance, or your loyalty, or your help, or your aid. All these are the meaning of al-wala. All of this word in the Arabic language, al-wala, as we know, is comprehensive for all these meanings that we just mentioned. It's comprehensive for all of these meanings. He said it can mean to profess and show one's allegiance, to show his allegiance, loyalty, or help or aid, or to take one close. These are words that are close in their meaning and is comprehensive, and it all coincides directly with the meaning of al-wala, al-wala, al-wala. And I'm sure that everyone has heard in the Quran, or if they heard the words such as wali, or the word, for example, awliya, or the word, or the verb, for example, walla yuwalli, or yatawalla, tawalla yatawalla. All these are derivatives from the same root word, which either means waliyun or waliyun, or muwala, or wala. All of them go back to the same meaning, basically, even though the usages of it is different. For we say, Ya ma'ash al-ikhwa, as we talked about last lesson, or akhawat, excuse me, that he said that the meaning of al-muwala means, like we said, to take as or to profess your allegiance to someone, your allegiance, your loyalty, your aid, to take one close to you. As all these are, like we said, of the principles or the usul of Ahl Sunnah, in which you'll find that a lot of the Muslims have neglected in these days, which comes as a result of it. Allah's disgrace and His humiliation has fell upon the Muslims who have deviated from this principle. Al-wala wal-bara is mentioned all throughout the Quran. As we talked about in the last lessons, and I don't have time, but we don't have time to discuss what we had mentioned from the previous class. But just to put emphasis on this matter, as we know, even though we learn these principles, we have to know how to apply them correctly. For number one, we lay down the foundation. As in regards to who are, for number one, the awliya. As you'll find, Allah Himself calls Himself wali. He says He's a wali. Allahu waliyu alladhina amanu yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur, as Allah says in His book. Notice it says in the ayah, Allahu waliyu alladhina amanu. Meaning Allah Himself calls Himself the wali. Like we said, and I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, all these words come from the same meaning. Wala, wali, awliya, mawla, walla, yuwalli, tawalla, yatawalla, all of them is all going back to what we're discussing now. They're just different verbs, like we say, have different usages. For number one, Allah Himself calls Himself a wali. He said He's the waliyu alladhina amanu. He's the protector. He's the one that gives aid. He's the one that will protect and defend those who believe. So notice it says in the ayah, for example, Allahu waliyu alladhina amanu yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur. He is the one that is the protector, the defender, and the one who gives aid of those who believe. Allah Ta'ala, notice He called Himself a wali. And likewise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also used the word wali for those who believe. Rather, the plural form of wali is awliya. Awliya is the plural form of wali. Allah Tabaraka wa ta'ala also calls His creation wali. And He calls the creation awliya. For one who's a wali, meaning the one who is close to Allah, likewise, based upon them embracing the correct belief and likewise embracing the correct methodology and performing an abundance of obedience and uprightness. And the more a person increases in that, the more he will become close to Allah, where he will increase his walaya, where he will be a wali of Allah. Meaning the one who's close to Allah. Because like we talked about from the meanings of wala or wali, all of them means not only just to be an aid or person that gives aid, also from those meanings is one who is close. So wali, as we know in this context, means someone who's close to Allah. The one who gives aid to his religion, not aid to Allah. Because Allah doesn't have the characteristic of need of anything. But the one who aids his religion, the aiding the religion being propagated properly and establishing it in the earth so the rest of the creation can be guided properly. So one who's wali is the one who's close to Allah, and the one who embraces the religion of al-Islam and he traverses upon the methodology of Salafiyah and will bear the fruits of that, which is an abundance of obedience and uprightness to Allah. He will become close to Allah, where Allah Ta'ala will protect him or her. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will even make war with the one who harms his wali. And the head of all those who are from the awliya of Allah is the people of Tawheed, the people of monotheism, the people of Sunnah, the people of Al-Hadith, the people of the correct methodology. They are the heads of those who are wali. Even Allah Ta'ala has said in his book, in the authentic Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, which is in Al-Hadith Al-Qudsi, where the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man aada li waliyan," that Allah Ta'ala says, "Man aada li waliyan, faqad adhantuhu bil harb." Whoever makes enmity with a wali of mine, I will make war with him. So notice Allah in the hadith called from the creation a wali. There are people who are Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's awliya. And we said the awliya is the plural form of the word wali. So a person that harms a person of tawheed, or a person that harms a person of sunnah, a person that harms a person upon the correct methodology, a person that harms a person of uprightness and obedience, a person that, for example, performs all his 5 prayers, a person that performs his voluntary prayers, a person that's constantly trying to be upright with the creation, Allah Ta'ala will make that person a wali of his. And for a person from the creation to harm that individual will cause Allah to make war with that person. So that's the reason why we have to be very careful when we harm people of Tawheed or harm our brothers and sisters. Because you never know who's a wali, who's very close to Allah, and if you harm that person, Allah will make war with you. So a person should abstain from trying to harm the people of Tawheed, the people of Sunnah, the people of Hadith, the people of uprightness. Because, like we said, you never know whose walayah is very strong with Allah. And Allah Ta'ala has declared war with a person who tries to harm him or her. So this affair is not something that is simple. It's something that's an affair that is very what? It is very tremendous and dangerous at the same time. And we know from the heads, and Allah knows best, of course we know, from those who are from the heads of the awliya of Allah, no doubt, is from those ulama, those scholars who are the true scholars of Ahl Sunnah wa Salafiyeen, such as the likes of Sheikh Salih Fawzan, Sheikh Salih Luhaydan, Sheikh AbdurRazzaaq, Ibn Baz, Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymin, Sheikh Muhammad Nasruddin al-Albani, Sheikh Muqbil ibn Hadi al-Wadi'i. All these are ai''imma. And you notice through the time of history, anyone who speaks ill of these, excuse me, I forgot to mention, the great Imam, even though a lot of people, Allah knows best, are going to cringe when I say this word, is the great Imam, Rabi' ibn Hadi al-Madkhali. Not Muhammad ibn Hadi, Rabi' ibn Hadi al-Madkhali. Rather, Muhammad Hadi was his student, so you can't even compare the two. That's his sheikh. How you going to put this person who's a student on with the level of who is his teacher and who is on a higher level than him and more mature and more of his senior and more higher level of knowledge? The great Imam Rabi' ibn Umayr al-Madkhali, the great Imam. Notice that no one speaks about these ulama these days and times except you find that Allah ends up disgracing them. I've never found one individual, and I don't make any exception, from the 90s when I became Muslim up to now, anyone that speaks ill of these ulama, except you will find that Allah has disgraced them. You don't even hear their name mentioned anymore, nor does anyone from the creation even care who you are, because of you having a severe tongue in these scholars. And Allah knows best of the reason, because Allah knows best. They are from the awliya of Allah. The awliya of Allah who Allah has declared He will make war against you. And it doesn't mean whether they're living or dead. Rahimahumullah. Wa jazakumullahu anna wa anil muslimin khairul jaza. You can make war with the wali while he's living and while after his death, by you speaking ill about them. And like I said, I've never heard anyone speaking about any of these ulama, whether Sheikh Rabi' or whether Sheikh Salih Fawzan, or whether Sheikh al-Imam al-Albani, or whether Sheikh bin Baz, or Sheikh Uthaymin, or Sheikh Muqbil. Any of these ulama, you don't never hear anyone speaking ill about them except Allah ends up disgracing them, disgracing the person, disgracing them in this world to the point where even the creation doesn't even care about you. Who is who? Who is he? I don't even remember who he is or her. Creation doesn't even care about you, based upon the fact Allah knows best because you made war with the awliya of Allah. So the awliya of Allah ta'ala are those of the people of Tawheed, the people of Sunnah, the people of Hadith, the people of the correct creed, the people who's trying to cling to the Athar and be firm upon the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and practice the religion correctly and perform in an abundance of obedience until the person becomes from the awliya of Allah. As it comes in the Hadith, as we'll discuss, and even from the ulama from the past, you never find anyone speaking ill. For example, of Imam Ahmad. Oh, no, excuse me, let's go back to it. Let's go back before that. You never find anybody speaking bad of the Prophet himself, who's the head of the awliya of Allah, Muhammad ibn Abdullah alayhi salatu wasalam, except you'll find that Allah disgraces that person. You'll never find that the people speak ill about the Sahaba, who are the awliya of Allah, except that you'll find that, like we said, Allah ends up disgracing those people. And those who follow them with ihsan from the tabi'een, from the a'imma of this religion, from the Imam al-Bukhari, and Imam Muslim, and Imam al-Shafi'i, and also a lot of the heads of the Ahl ilm. Except that you'll find, like we said, you'll find that Allah Ta'ala ends up disgracing them. Because these were the awliya of Allah. These were the awliya. It's likewise from the ulama, Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, and his Tilmid Ibn al-Qayyim, and then Imam al-Dhahabi, and Imam Ibn Kathir. And we could go on and on and on down the list. Except that you'll find that Allah Ta'ala disgraces these people. For that, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, this affair of al-walaya, or this affair of wala wal-bara is something tremendous. We don't know, and that's the reason why we abstain from harming our brothers and sisters. We abstain from harming them on the internet. We abstain from harming them in the masajid, because you truly do not know who's a wali of Allah. And like I said, it's even more dangerous when you come to a Salafi masjid who are the peoples upon Tawheed and the people of Sunnah, because they are more than likely, they are the awliya of Allah. And you don't know, you might curse at a person, or you might harm a person, and then Allah ends up disgracing you. You have to be very careful how you treat your brothers and sisters, especially the people of Tawheed and Sunnah and Salafiyah, because they are the awliya of Allah. You might harm them, and Allah makes war with you. And then you wonder why your life isn't going the way it should be going. Think back of who you might have harmed with your tongue, or you might have harmed with your hands. For that reason, ya ma'ashal akhawat, Allah Ta'ala, He's even said in His book, in authentic sunnah, of how a person increases his or her walaya, his closeness to Allah. For verily, you notice in the hadith it says, "Man aada li waliyan faqad adhantuhu bil harb, wa ma yataqarrabu ilayya 'abdi bi shay'in ahabba ilayya mimma aftaradtuhu alayhi, wa la yazal 'abdi yataqarrabu ilayya bin nawafili hatta uhibba, wa idha ahbabtuhu كنت سمعه الذي يسمع به وبصره الذي يبصر به ويده التي يبطش بها ورجله التي يمشي بها." To the end of the hadith, where the Prophet ﷺ in the hadith al-Qudsi that Allah says, "My abd will never cease to draw close to me by those obligations that I've obliged upon him or her, until what? Until لا يزال العبد يتقرب إلي أحب بشيء أحب إلي مما افترضته عليه." This is said. He says, "Well, the abd will never draw close to me by the most beloved to me, except by those duties that I've obliged upon him." So notice in the hadith, he's increasing him or her, his walaya. He's getting closer to Allah by the obligations that Allah has what? Has obliged upon everyone. Then he says that my abd will never cease to draw close to me. He says by those supererogatory or optional prayers, or those duties, or anything optional, except I will love him. And if I love him, he says, I will become the hearing in which he hears by, and the seeing or the sight in which he sees. To the end of the hadith. You'll find that the great Imam, Sheikh Salih Fawzan, He even commented on this hadith. He said that the meaning of the hadith is not like how the Sufis believe it, how Allah becomes one with the individual, or from the Asha'ira or anyone from those who believe that Allah becomes in the human being. He said this is nonsense. That's not the meaning of the hadith. The meaning of the hadith is that Allah Ta'ala will give him inspiration, meaning that he will give him tawfiq, success in his religion. Meaning, whereas his iman will become so strong, he will not want to look at except that which is pleasing to Allah. Or he will not want to touch or feel except that which is pleasing to Allah. Or he will not want to walk towards except what is pleasing to Allah. Or he will not to touch or see or hear any of those affairs except that which is pleasing to Allah. That's the meaning of the hadith. The meaning of the hadith is not what the Sufi believe, saying that Allah becomes one with the creation becomes one with Allah. That's not the meaning of the hadith. For verily, ya ma'ashal akhawat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called himself a wali. And he called the believers awliya, the people of Tawheed. And Allah ta'ala called his messenger a wali. And the believers awliya. And also likewise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likewise had informed the mu'mineen, the believers, to take Allah and his messenger as what? Likewise awliya. So this word you will find is very general, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses it for himself, he uses it for his messenger, and he uses it for the believers. And depending on the context and the usage of the word, like we said, then it takes the meaning of what suits it, depending on the what? The sentence and the context of how it's used. Then not only do we have awliya of Allah, you have awliya of shaitan. You have awliya of shaitan. So the people who are the awliya of Allah, number one, you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, in his book called Kitab al-Furqan, Bayna awliya al-Rahman wa awliya al-Shaytan. Tremendous treatise, tremendous book. That Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, that he mentioned in this tremendous book entitled, the book which is laying down the criteria between who is the awliya of Ar-Rahman and who is the awliya of Shaitan. This book is tremendous, in which Shaykh al-Islam lays down the truth of who is truly a wali, or who are the truly the awliya of Allah. Just to summarize everything, Allah Ta'ala says in His book, and I think it's either Surah to Yunus or Surah to Yusuf. Allah Ta'ala says in His book, "Ala inna awliya Allah la khawfun alayhim wa lahum yahzanun alladhina amanu wa kanu yattaqun." Allah Ta'ala says in His book, saying and giving a definition of a wali, meaning in regards to the creation. Who is a wali? What's the definition? I remember also likewise, I was listening to the lessons of my father, and I consider him my father, Fadilat al-Shaykh Ubayd ibn Abdullah al-Jabiri, Hafidhullah wa ra'ah. That he's from our fathers. Rather, he's better than the fathers who are our biological fathers, because they protect our religion, protect it from those who try to taint it and misguide us from the correct understanding of it and the correct methodology and creed of it. My Fadilat al-Walid, Shaykh Ubayd ibn Abdullah ibn Sulaiman al-Jabiri, Hafidhullah wa ra'ah, that he mentioned that the meaning of wali, and he was given a sharh of Kashf al-Shubahat, and likewise what Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah mentioned in his book, Kitab al-Furqan, Bayna awliya al-Rahman wa awliya al-Shaytan. What is the definition of a wali in regards to the human beings, meaning from the people? The definition of a wali is exactly what is mentioned in the ayah, where Allah Ta'ala says, "Ala inna awliya Allah." Notice Allah said, "Awliya Allah, la khawfun alayhim, wa la hum yahzanun." They have no fear upon them, nor will they grieve or be sad. Then Allah gives the definition. He says, "Alladhina amanu wa kanu yattaqun." So this is the definition of a wali. So the first definition is every person who embraces the correct iman of Islam, and then the correct understanding of Islam, Not just being Muslim, of course, but correct being Muslim, having true and correct iman, correct belief, of course, correct methodology, and not only that, those who have taqwa. Those who have taqwa. So we know the word taqwa is comprehensive for the people who stay away from polytheism, the people who stay away from bid'ah, the people who stay away from disobedience and fisq. So Allah Ta'ala says simply in this ayat, they're the people of iman and they're the people of taqwa. That's a wali of Allah. Rather, you'll find that the akhas sifati awliya illah. Rather, you'll find that the most exclusive characteristics of the awliya of Allah is what's explained in Surah An-Nur, ayat number 51. Allah Ta'ala wa jalla fil ula, that He mentions in His book, إنما كان قول المؤمنين إذا دعوا إلى الله ورسوله ليحكم بينهم أن يقولوا سمعنا وأطعنا وأولئك هم المفلحون. So now we just gave the head of the characteristics of who are the awliya of Allah. So those who believe, those who have taqwa, they are from the awliya of Allah. There are also certain specific characteristics that are exclusive. As it comes to Surah An-Nur, ayat number 51, where this also brings a distinguishment that tamyiz, or brings that clarification and that distinguishment between who are the akhas, the exclusive awliya of Allah. For example, Allah Ta'ala says in Surah An-Nur, verily the statement of the believers, if they are called to Allah and His Messenger to judge between them, that they say, we hear and we obey. He said, rather they are the ones who will be successful. So a person was saying, for example, Allah Ta'ala, and I'm saying what is the hardest of affairs in these days and times. Because in these days and times, we are tested in a lot of matters. Allah says such and such, and the messenger says such and such. For example, Allah says, and His messenger says, music is haram. Notice, now compare to the statements of the people to what Allah and His messenger has said for us to what? To do. And despite of that, we will say, for example, well, yeah, I know, I mean, you got to realize we got to modernize things. This is not from the statements who are truly the awliya of Allah. Oh, we have to modernize. We have to compromise a bit. And what is the fitna of, and I think Allah knows best, the fitna for our sisters in these days and times is their and Allah knows best. The fitna in as far as in their relationships. Allah knows best the jihad of a woman based upon how Allah created her. The jihad of a woman is her feelings and her emotions. That's their jihad. The jihad of women these days, and Allah knows best, is trying to control their feelings and their emotions and not reacting based upon them, based upon how they're emotionally feeling at a particular time. Saying a statement that will anger Allah and His messenger. That's their fitna. Their test comes when a trial comes. It's just your brother, your husband, especially in these days and times in our communities, when your husband got married again. It's sad to say that example, but that's what's going on, what you hear consistently. As soon as your husband gets married again, that's the test. That's the test. Here it comes. Now as a sister, you're going to work in accordance with what Allah says, or you're going to start making statements such as, I can't deal with this. This is just too much. I know what Allah legislates. I just can't. I don't know. It's just something about that ayah. Having more than one wife, I just can't swallow it. I just can't. I just can't swallow it. Keep in mind, like I said, inshallah, we'll discuss this in Kitab al-Nikah, because there's going to be a hadith that's going to come in that. It's a difference between being pleased with what Allah legislates and a difference between men doing it and practicing it incorrectly. Separate between the two. Always keep in mind, your i'tiqad, your belief is everything Allah legislates is perfect. Do not have any doubt in that. Everything that Allah legislates is perfect. And it will bring rectification, and it will bring unification to the societies and the people in general. Everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislates is made in order to bring the people together, unite them, build families, build love amongst people, and unite them. Nothing Allah legislates is going to bring hatred or bring separation or division at all. Rather, say that what Allah legislates is perfect, but how the brothers are practicing it is something else. How the men are doing it is something else. But do not ever say what Allah and His Messenger legislates is what is incorrect. Always have the i'tiqad and the belief what Allah and His Messenger has legislated is perfect. And it will bring rectification, and it will bring the hearts together, and it will bring, likewise, and it will increase unification amongst the people. So, in regards to the statements that the people will make, for example, yeah, I know Allah says in His book that I know I'm not supposed to have a boyfriend or girlfriend, but hey, it is what it is. It is what it is. These are not the statements from the statements of the awliya of Allah. Notice it says clearly in the ayah. What does it say? He says, verily the statement of those who believe, if they are called to Allah and His Messenger to judge between their affairs, that they say we hear and obey. And they are the true successful ones. They are the true successful ones. For here you'll find, like we said, no matter what it is an affair of i'tiqad, a belief, if Allah says He's above the heavens, khalas, sami'na wa ta'na. If it is an affair in minhaj, where we say, for example, we stay away from ahl bid'ah, we say sami'na wa ta'na. We stay away from the hizbi masajid, sami'na wa ta'na. We only go there to pray and leave and mind our business. We don't go there in order to fish around their pockets and compromise our religion because of some money they have. That's not from the awliya of Allah that would do something like this. Also, likewise, in regards to our uprightness and our obedience to Allah, same thing. Our obedience to Allah, we don't say Allah and His Messenger says this, then you say, for example, yeah, I know what Allah and Messenger said, but, I'm just, it's like, yeah, I know, but at the end of the day, listen, we just got to we black in a country where, we have to protect our own. And I ask people always that make these statements of black nationalism, what's going to truly rectify the black race? What is it? Other than Tawheed and Sunnah, what is there else that is left? Democracy? Secular education? Having jobs with a lot of money? This is the da'wah of a majority of these type of people these days. So basically, if a person now, even though he might have a lot of money, but he's committing polytheism, ultimately, will he be successful? If a person now is making statements of black nationalism where he gives precedence to that over on Allah and His Messenger said, and that nullifies his Islam, will he ultimately be successful? In his grave when the dirt is put on top of his head, because right then and there, the dunya is over now. What's only left is whether or not he purified his belief system. That's now what's going to start taking place when he gets put under that dirt. Because now Allah Ta'ala is not going to ask, were you black? Allah is going to ask you, who's your Lord? Who's your prophet? What's your religion? Is any of the questions of the grave going to be, you're going to be asked about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You're not going to be asked about whether you were white in this or black in this world. You're not going to be asked about any of those who you blindly took as the awliya of Allah from those who you commit shirk and polytheism with. You'll be asked about whether or not you unified Allah and His worship. which Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is going to ask, who's your Lord? Which is Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. And if you truly implemented Tawheed, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala will give you tawfiq to give the correct answer, which is Allah. Notice in that two statements, in it is Tawheed al-Rububiyyah wal-Uluhiyyah, both. So let me ask this. As I discussed this on many occasions, when you are first put under the dirt, all of us, when we are put under the dirt, we are going to be alone under the we're going to be alone where dirt is going to be piled on top of us, very heavy, a bunch of dirt. We're going to be put in a little crack. We're going to be put in that little crack or that little opening under the grave, and then the people are going to pour a load of dirt over us. So now we're alone. So none of our children, none of our husbands or wives or whatever, whoever it is, no one can help us now. We're all alone now, each individually, alone. So, the first thing now, what would be asked, is in what we're discussing now, Usul al-Thalatha. Keep in mind that what I'm discussing in this book, Usul al-Thalatha, is the questions of the grave. The great Imam Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Wahhab authored this book in order to answer the first thing that you will be asked when you are leaving, departing from this world. To let you know that the great Imam was preparing the people for the ultimate, what? The ultimate test. That's why he wrote this book, Usul al-Thalatha. And these principles, what we're learning right now, will aid you. And in the first question, which will be asked when all of us are dead, which is pertaining to Tawheed. So the first question we will be asked when we are dead under that dirt is pertaining to Tawheed, when Allah Ta'ala sends the angels to ask the questions, Mar Rabbuk, who is your Lord? Rabbuk, Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. If the Abd truly unified Allah in his worship, where he had performed Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, his worship, perfected it, Allah will give him tawfiq, success, to stay firm when that question is asked from those angels, in which you will find that the Messenger of Allah said they will be very terrifying. They will be very, very, very terrifying. Those angels that's going to ask this question, they're going to be intimidating and they're going to be very terrifying. At the same time, may Allah preserve us. Allah Ta'ala, if the person in this world unified Allah in his worship, truly, Allah will give him tawfiq in the grave to say Allah. Notice the word Allah itself, that particular word itself necessitates Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. So your first test departing from this world and you're embarking upon the next stage of the human being, which is called the al-Hayat al-Barzakhiyah, the middle life, between the worldly life and the hereafter, whether it be paradise and hell, is the middle one, which is al-Hayat al-Barzakhiyah, which is in the grave. Because that's another type of life. So now when you're embarking upon that life, Allah is firstly making you and holding you responsible and accountable for what? Tawheed al-Rububiyyah and Uluhiyyah as soon as you die. So that's the reason why you'll find that AbdurRazzaaq and the rest of the Du'at al-Salafiyyin always putting emphasis on this so much. Putting so much emphasis. For those who unified Allah in his worship and learned all these principles in this book on which I'm discussing right now, then you have truly purified La ilaha illallah. You have purified it in preparation for your next stage of your life. So when you're departing from this world and embarking upon the new life, you will be ready. What is the part of being ready? Learning wala wal bara. And you notice that Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Wahhab made this as a principle in his book, because it's part of your preparation for that question that you will be addressed when the two angels come. It's because wala wal bara is an affair in which is very, very dangerous. And if you water down and compromise this principle, you will be amongst those who tainted your shahada. You tainted it, and you rendered it in a manner which is what? In which you do not want to meet Allah ta'ala upon, where your shahada or your testimony has some discrepancies in it. And you'll find that Allah ta'ala, even in his book, and which we'll discuss inshallah, a person can unify Allah ta'ala, leaving off, for example, shirk, leaving off polytheism. He can leave off worshiping idols, worshiping the sun, worshiping the moon, worshiping the stars, worshiping Jesus, the son of Mary, worshiping alayhi salatu wasalam, worshiping human beings, worshiping the awliya of Allah, worshiping people who are righteous, worship people who are not righteous and wretched, to the end of it. You stayed away from all of this, and you unified Allah as far as in the aspect of what? Outright worship. You will find that Ahl Ilm mention and say, if you do not display your disallegiance for the enemies of Allah, then still your tawheed is invalid. That's how dangerous this affair is. Why? Because the meaning of Muslim is bara'atu min ash-shirki wa ahlihi. You have to make total disallegiance from the people of polytheism. Not only, of polytheism, it also has to be its people too. That's how dangerous this affair is. And you'll find from the deviant sects who compromise this principle is the Ikhwanis. At the head of them is all of those who are calling the black nationalism now, and now who are joining all different groups. Not only just the people of shirk you have to leave off, but even the people of bid'ah, you also have to leave them off. And we'll discuss that in a minute too. That's also part of purifying your wala and your bara and preparing yourself to meeting Allah. So it's not just the people of shirk you leave off. Not only just shirk you leave off, you have to leave off shirk and its people. That's the meaning of you being Muslim. Notice that you'll find that every definition of Islam is just what the ulama mentioned. Listen to what they say. Al-istislamu lillahi bit-tawheed wal-inqiyadu lahu bit-ta'a wal-bara'atu min ash-shirki wa ahlihi. It's surrendering, the meaning of Muslim or Islam, the meaning of Islam. Surrendering yourself to Allah alone, to one deity. Al-istislamu lillahi bit-tawheed. Notice it says tawheed. Bowing yourself down to Allah. Inqiyadu lahu bit-ta'a. Surrendering and bowing yourself down to Him by obeying Him. Listen to the last part. Freeing yourself from polytheism and its people. So it's not just enough you free yourself from polytheism. You have to free yourself from its people, or it will not be enough. And also likewise, we'll talk about and discuss freeing yourself from bid'ah, from innovations, and likewise its people. It's also part of wala wal bara. You'll find in ayat in which Allah Ta'ala talks about. If you'll notice in the ayat, how the Quran and the ayats and the verses are in order, accurately. Allah, in His infinite wisdom, in His perfection, subhanahu, jalla fil ula, says in so many ayat, talking about the people from the past. Notice it says in one ayat, I'll just give one example. One ayat, it says, innana bura'a'u minkum wa mimma ta'budun. And another ayah, Allah Ta'ala says in His book, Inni bari'un mimma tushrikuna billahi shay'a. Or no, the first ayah we were talking about as far as the awliya. Verily we are free from you, and we are free from what? You worship along with Allah. Notice in the ayah, Allah gave precedence to what, everyone? Notice it says, freeing yourself from the mushrikeen before freeing themselves from the idols. Did you notice in the ayah where it says, one ayah, and there's a lot of examples of this. Allah says, verily we are free from you,
and free from what you worship. If you'll notice in the ayah, it gave precedence to freeing yourself from those people who are worshiping and associating partners with Allah before, them separating themselves from the idols and those who they worship along with Allah. Your father, Ahl Ilm, have mentioned in this regard that the benefit from this is that to give utmost importance that you have to free yourself from those who are the enemies of Allah. And that is more emphasis than just merely leaving off polytheism itself. That you have to free yourself from its people. And you'll find that Ibn al-Qayyim, that he mentions in his poetry in Nuniyah, beautiful poetry. He mentioned the beautiful poetry, rahimahullah, al-Alama, Ibn al-Qayyim. Where he said in his poetry, in Nuniyah is a poetry, if you was to memorize that, you will be a Asad al-Sunnah. You'll be a lion of the Sunnah Aqidah. Where he said in his poetry, he said, أَتُحِبُّ أَعْدَاءَ الْحَبِيبِ وَتَدَّعِي حُبَّ اللَّهُ مَا ذَاكَ بِإِمْكَانِهِ وَكَذَا تُعَادِي جَاهِدًا أَحْبَابَهُ أَيْنَ الْمَحَبَّةُ يَا أَخَ الشَّيْطَانِ. Listen to what Ibn al-Qayyim says. Do you love the enemies of the one who you claim you love? أَتُحِبُّ أَعْدَاءَ الْحَبِيبِ وَتَدَّعِي حُبَّ اللَّهُ مَا ذَاكَ بِإِمْكَانِهِ. Do you love the enemies of the one who you claim you love? Then at the same time you claim that you love him? That's impossible even in an analogy. وَكَذَا تُعَادِي جَاهِدًا أَحْبَابَهُ تُعَادِي جَاهِدًا أَحْبَابَهُ أَيْنَ الْمَحَبَّةُ يَا أَخَ الشَّيْطَانِ. He says, and at the same time you make war with those who Allah loves. You make enmity with the people who Allah loves. Where is the true love, O brother of the shaitan? أين المحبة يا أخ الشيطان? Where is the love, O أخ الشيطان? Where is it truly? There's no way you can say that you love Allah except you have to hate what Allah hates and also likewise hate its people. Has to be. Or else, like we said, you will render and die in a state where you have tainted your shahada. You have not prepared yourself to meet Allah yet. And when you are answered that question, who is your Lord? Like we said, people think that answer is just an answer that you'll just say, oh, Allah, I'm good. No, it's not that easy. In order for you to answer that question, Allah has to give you tawfiq because you're going to be terrified. All of us will be terrified. And all of us will be in a state of horror and fright. And all of us will be in a state where we're going to need Allah to keep us firm. Because everything now that we've done in this world and what we believed and what we have professed and what we have done of righteous actions is now all going to play into play in that particular moment when the angels are now interrogating us, because it's going to be an interrogation. People now fear some of the kuffar and what they interrogate them at the police station or when the KGB or the FBI will interrogate you. Some of us get scared to the point we start singing like a bird. But as far as in regards to now, this is going to be on a different level. This is going to be Allah's angels terrifying you and interrogating you. To the point when the hadith, and we know that the Prophet ﷺ even informed that once that angel will start hitting you and striking you with a hadith, that they said if it was to hit the largest of a mountain, it would disintegrate. He says that if you answer those questions wrong, they will start their punishment of you. And for that reason, Allah Ta'ala says in Surah Ibrahim, He says, يُثَبِّتُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا بِالْقَوْلِ الثَّابِتِ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ وَيُضِلُّ اللَّهُ الظَّالِمِينَ وَيَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ مَا يَشَاءُ. Allah says in Surah Ibrahim, He says, Allah will keep firm those who believe بالقول الثابت, with a firm word in this world and in the hereafter. You'll find that Ibn Kathir, if you go back to the ayah, and he says the firm word in this world is the meaning of La ilaha illallah, and everything that, of course, that necessitates keeping it or doing affairs and beliefs and actions that will render it staying valid. So not just saying La ilaha illallah, but also being upon uprightness as far as in one's belief system, his methodology, and his what? And his uprightness as far as performing an abundance of righteous actions. Also, notice in the ayah it says, and also in the hereafter, meaning in the grave, that Allah only, if He truly wants good for the abd, He will keep him steadfast and firm when the angels are interrogating him. When they're interrogating him, He'll keep him firm. Due to the fact of what he did of uprightness in this world, Allah will keep him firm in this world, and He'll keep him firm in the grave with the questions, and likewise Allah will keep him firm on the day of resurrection. He'll keep him firm. If He wants the abd, if Allah wants good for the slave, He'll keep him firm upon Salafiyah and Minhaj al-Salafi wal Mu'taqad al-Salafi, and He'll keep him away from bid'ah and shirk and his people and embracing their ideologies, and He'll keep him firm upon that. And if Allah wants good for him, He'll keep him firm, because if he stays firm upon that in this world, when the angels are interrogating him, he'll be able to answer the question, because that's also from the thabat, the firmness that Allah gives to His slave. And likewise on the day of resurrection, which comes in the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, and also the hadith of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, where wala wal bara will manifest on the day of resurrection likewise. Where I did not get to mention this in the lecture in Germantown, where I want to remind everyone, wala wal bara also is going to manifest on the day of resurrection. Where is it? If you notice in the hadith, it says in the hadith, and I think it's like I said, it's either in Abu Hurairah, it's the hadith of Abu Hurairah, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, the tremendous hadith. Abu Sa'id al-Khudri of what happens on the day of resurrection is tremendous. And also likewise the tremendous hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud ibn Ummi Abd, radiyallahu anhu jami', where it says when Allah will test the believers on the day of resurrection, after all the people who fell into polytheism will go into hell, people who worship the sun, the moon, the stars, the worship of Jesus, the son of Mary, the Uzair, from the Jews who worship the Uzair, all of those who are upon polytheism and idolatry. Allah has told us specifically what's going to happen on the day of resurrection. He has given us authentic evidences and proofs which have been preserved. So if you notice in the order on the day of resurrection, the only people that will be left is Allah, the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who's the believers, and who is amongst them of the hypocrites, of course, because they're going to be tested in two and they're going to be exposed. But at any rate, Allah is going to test the believers, and He's going to come to them in the closest image of what they thought was Allah. Allah is going to test them and say, "I'm your Lord." And Allah is going to come in the form of an image. And Allah is going to change images. It says, astaghfirullah, I didn't mean to use the word change. Allah is going to come in an image after another image. We'll just say what Shaykh al-Islam says. We don't say Allah yataghayyar. We say Allah ya'ti fi surah ba'da surah. So Allah comes in on the day of resurrection, will come in an image after another image. Because it's going to be a test. Notice in the narration, and this is wala wal bara here. He says when the people are about to, because some of them will be about to fail the test. They will say in the hadith, he says, oh our Lord, he says, Inna faraqna an-nas fi ahwaji ma kunna ilayhim wa lam nusahibhum. فيقول الله تبارك وتعالى أنا ربكم فيقولون نعوذ بالله منك لا نشرك بالله شيئا. The believers are going to show their wala wal bara, hoping it's going to be a means to what? To benefit them. They're going to say, verily, O our Lord, we left off the people, meaning we left them off. Even though we were in the most state of dire need of them in this world. Meaning, for example, our brothers, our fathers, our sisters who are close to us, who are in our families, who were upon kufr and shirk, and those who made war with us, and we left them off for you, because we love Tawheed and we loved Allah and His Messenger. So notice it says in the hadith, he says we are most in desperate need of them. Who doesn't need their mother? Who doesn't need their father? Who doesn't need their brothers? Who doesn't need their sisters? Especially their biological ones. Notice they'll say on the day of resurrection, verily we left off the people. And we were in the state, we were in the most dire need of them. And did not take them as our companions. Notice that's wala wal bara. It will manifest itself on the day of resurrection. And then Allah will say, I am your Lord. And He will come in an image, testing them. And then that's when the believers will say, we seek refuge in Allah from you. We don't end up any partners with Him. Then Allah is going to come in another image, testing them. So some of them is about to fail the test. Shaykh al-Islam says, we do not say that Allah changes. A'udhu billah. We don't use the word taghayyur. He says, however, we say Allah ya'ti fi surah ba'ta surah. That Allah on the day of resurrection will come in one image after another image as a test for the believers. Then Allah will say on the day of resurrection, is there a sign that if you was to see it, you will know that that's your Lord? Is there a sign? Is there alama? Ta'rifuna rabbakum biha? Is there a sign that if you was to see إِذَا رَأَيْتُمُوهَا تَعْرِفُونَ رَبَّكُمْ بِهَا? If it's a sign that if you was to see, you would know your Lord by it, until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reveal the shin. And then everyone will fall into prostration, except the hypocrites, where their backs will become boards, and they'll be exposed. Excuse me. For verily, ya ma'ashal akhawat, notice in the hadith of wala wal bara, I don't know why I'm sick. I have been sick a couple of days with this. For this example of wala wal bara, the example of wala wal bara will even manifest itself on the day of resurrection. And you'll find, like we said, in so many ayat in which Allah Ta'ala has talked about this affair of He has awliya, and then you have awliya as shaitan. Who are the awliya of shaitan? The awliya of shaitan we'll discuss in another class. And we'll also discuss how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's anger falls upon those who take other than Allah and His Messenger and the believers as awliya. His anger falls upon him, and His curse and His wrath falls upon them. So you can find that those from the deviant sect, especially the Muslims who are upon deviant methodologies, who are upon pure ikhwaniyah and their methodology, how they fall into what the Jews fell into, especially the deviant sect from the ikhwaniyin, for those who are upon the methodologies of the ikhwanis, who are today's days and times, you'll find that upon that methodology are Shadi Muhammad, Tahir Wire, Muhammad Munir, Ali Davis, and the rest of them. And I say them names specifically because they are the ones who are deluding and misguiding the people in the name of Salafiyah. And they are the most dangerous. The most dangerous is those who comes in the cloak of Salafiyah, saying the word, but are upon something that is totally in contrast to it. Quoting ayat, quoting ahadith, and the people are singing and sucking it all in, but at the same time, they are upon a methodology of watering down and compromising this principle of wala wal bara. And like I just said, notice that wala wal bara, like we said, was a characteristic in which when the Jews left it off, His anger and His dissent and His curse descended upon them for compromising and taking people who are the enemies of Allah as their awliya, close to them, being close to them, aiding them, protecting them. And it's just like what Ibn al-Qayyim mentioned in his poetry. You make war with the people who are the awliya of Allah, or the awliya of Allah, from the people of Tawheed, the people of Sunnah, and the people of Salafiyah. All your refutations is on them. But you have this open, broad chest for those who are making war with it. You have this open, broad chest making excuses for those who are openly making war with it. You make all the excuses in the world for them. You so kind to them, saying that they are ignorant people. We have to be kind. We have to do this. We have to take their money, go to their masajid. To the point where you don't even teach them what they need to rectify themselves in Tawheed. So are you truly rectifying them, or are you just around them because you like their money? Because I don't see nothing of these books being propagated in none of your dawah. None of it. So you chose me to hear you're not truly nurturing and wanting good for those people. Like I've said over and over again, and I challenge them, teach Kitab al-Tawheed Like how Sheikh bin Baz did. How he used to teach Kitab al-Tawheed or Surah Thalatha 5 times, 8 times, pumping Tawheed in the heads of the people. Pumping it, because he knew the importance of it. He started with fiqh and all those other issues too, no doubt. But he also likewise included in his da'wah this basic principle, which was the da'wah of all the prophets. In true rectification of the people and their societies, and if he truly wants good for them. You'll never find there's no mujaddid who rectified the people and their societies except they started with Tawheed. So who truly at the end of the day cares about the people and crack babies in the ghetto? The people who are propagating Tawheed, or you, who are the ones that have left it off? Don't see none of your classes, Kitab al-Tawheed, Usul al-Thalatha, Qawaid al-Arba', teaching it in details. You don't see it in none of your classes. You are not preparing the people for death, truly. You're not preparing them for it. You're just around it because you're weak for their money. Because I don't see none of this in none of your da'wah. None of it. And I told the people, I was down southwest Philadelphia, I taught Kitab al-Tawheed 3 times. And that's by the fadl of Allah. And that's la hawla minni wa la quwwa. And wallahi, I seen changes in the people. The people started coming. And the people wanted to be better people. They started leaving off music. They started leaving off selling drugs. They started stopping fornicating with women. They stopped. I seen it in the people. The people kept coming to me. Even some of the people, the brothers, could say, listen. And people who are close to me, and they're the best brothers. Best of people. They were selling drugs. I've been talking to brothers who was from the main drug dealers in the street, who had a lot of money. And they came to me and sat to me and said, I'm ready to change my life. That message of Tawheed has touched my heart. I said, of course it's going to touch the heart. The da'wah of the Anbiya is going to touch your heart if Allah truly wants good for you. The da'wah of Tawheed and Sunnah is going to penetrate your heart and have an effect on you. But however, do I hear it in your da'wah, Tahir, why? Except that you went over to Medina to the Haram to do it. Now, after 20 years? Man, you kind of late, don't you think? You kind of late. I think you should have started that off before the politics and involving people in it. Don't you think? For that reason, ya ma'ashal akhawat, those who truly want good for the people is those who are propagating this message, and especially those who are upholding the wala and bara, not people who are compromising it. But to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's anger descends on those type of people. As you'll find in the ayah, and I'm going to leave this off, which is in Surah Al-Ma'idah, and ayah number 81 and 80. Allah ta'ala says in this book about what happened with the Yahud. He says, تَرَى كَثِيرًا مِّنْهُمْ يَتَوَلَّوْنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَبِئْسَ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لَهُمْ أَنفُسُهُمْ أَنْ سَخِطَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ وَفِي الْعَذَابِ هُمْ خَالِدُونَ وَلَوْ كَانُوا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَالنَّبِيِّ وَمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْهِ مَا اتَّخَذُوهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءَ وَلَكِنَّ كَثِيرًا مِّنْهُمْ فَاسِقُونَ. Allah ta'ala says, you will find, because he was talking about what happened with the Jews, or what happened in the past with a lot of them. He says, you will find that a lot from amongst them, he says, you will see them taking those who disbelieve as awliya. يَتَوَلَّوْنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. You'll find that a lot of them was taking those who disbelieve as awliya, those close to them, protectors and aiders. Listen to what Allah says. لَبِئْسَ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لَهُمْ أَنفُسُهُمْ أَنْ سَخِطَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ. He says, how evil what they put forth of themselves, that Allah's anger fell upon them. And he says, and in the punishment, they will be dwelling therein. He says, and if they would have truly believed in Allah and the Prophet and what was revealed to them, if they truly had Iman, they would never have took them as awliya. He says, however, the majority of them were fasiqun. See, there were sinners and transgressors and those who were disobedient. So you now apply that to those who now make war with the people to Tawheed and Sunnah. And all your lectures, you take shots at the people Tawheed. Take shots at the Salafis. Take refutations against the Salafis? Why are you laughing and giggling with the people in the Maghrib Institute? Smiling and laughing on the platform. My brothers. Making excuses for the people bid'ah. And making war with the people of the Sunnah. Who's truly has mixed up the principle of wala wal bara. Truly. So we'll stop here, inshallah. We'll continue in the next class in 10 minutes, inshallah. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. رحمة الله.